How to always be at center no matter what. How to always be at center, how to return to center, how to recognize when you're off center, and how to come to center just as quickly as you can and remain there. That is what we're going to discuss today. Now, before we get into definitions, which we will do, so it's like, what are we talking about when we talk about center and so forth? I would like for you to rest assured that if you are already getting an idea of what it means to be at center, then we're probably talking about the same thing. We're talking about one and the same state of centeredness. But again, we'll get into what it means. But in order to do that, we need to first establish the importance and value and necessity of mastering this ability to return to center. And so I have four major values, four major end game benefits that come when we master this little skill. So first of all, it allows us to be safe, truly well, and truly at home in our experience. So you, in your experience of your life, imagine being able to feel truly safe, truly well, and truly at home. This is what we get. Number two is we can actually enjoy life, like actually get to a point where we are enjoying it as opposed to coping with it and like just having one damn thing come at us after another, being able to actually spread our wings and kind of enjoy the experience of life. Number three, it allows us to access very surprisingly profound and deep reservoirs of creativity, of wisdom, and of clarity, extreme clarity of mind, of heart, clarity of perception. And then the fourth one is that as you master the skill of returning and remaining at center, is that you become a healing presence in the world. And what's cool about this is that you become a healing presence just as you are, just walking into a room, just talking to somebody, just going about your day-to-day life. You are a healing presence, and you will notice this. People will say, wow, I just feel a little bit more calm when I talk to you, this kind of thing. All that comes from mastering the skill of being at center. As we get into this too, I want to establish a really important caveat that this is not something that like only the spiritual masters out there get. This is something that's very doable. I would love for you just to see it as a skill that is like any other skill, like juggling or like cooking, where you can get good at it. It just takes a little bit of practice. You do have to commit yourself to it. You do have to decide on some level to do it, but you don't necessarily have to make it into this big heavy duty thing. You don't have to like perform some sort of elaborate ceremony or like sell all your stuff and go into the mountains. Instead, it's just enough to commit to getting good at this. It's like, yeah, I want to master this. A lot of what I'm going to share with you is direct from what I learned in The Power of Now. And it's interesting. It's like I've seen other people who have read The Power of Now, and I asked them about their experience of it, and they say, oh, you know, it was fine, but whatever. For me, that book was everything. The peace that came from those pages, it just became such a high priority for me to access this peace and to live from it. And to my great delight, I discovered that it is doable. So, and I really want you to rest assured it is indeed doable. So allow everything that we establish going forward to be doable for you. So I'm going to get into a fun story about how I got into this. First, if we've never met, my name is Brent. So I'm a coach, I'm a healer, I'm an intuitive. I really like to discuss different elements of self-growth and self-actualization and service and how to become the very best version of ourselves. There are a lot of different things that I offer outside of YouTube. There's one thing that I want to mention today, which is the Sovereign Creators Collective, where if you're watching this, you still have access to the Founders Discount. We've already launched our first session. It was so beautiful and so grounding, and it's really just a supportive place where there's like a mutual support piece, but also I can support you as we learn how to enact this sort of material, how we enact the ability to be safe, to express our deepest creative longings, and to really find our power and our sovereignty in the upcoming weeks and months, because there's a lot of weird stuff that's coming at us in the future. And so being oriented so that we can be open to it and we can maintain our humor and our lightness and our optimism, for God's sake, going into these upcoming months is crucial. That's why I set this whole thing up. So the founder's discount is for 24 Canadian dollars a month. It is a fantastic deal, live calls, tons of benefits. You click through to the link if you want to learn about it, and on with the show that we go. I'm going to stop talking about it and get into this. How to always be at center. Okay, good. So story time. So here I am in my mid-20s. I'm with my wife. She was my girlfriend back then, Jessica, and we were living in Thailand, and we were teaching English teachers in Thailand. And I was like really super hard into my burgeoning hippy dippy phase. And I was learning about channeled stuff and energy healing. And there was a psychic on Fiverr, like this website where you can get stuff for $5. And they're like, we'll give you a psychic reading for $5. I was like, okay, that's cool. So all you have to do is like send a picture of yourself and like some blurb of some kind. And then they give back sort of a page writing about what they get. And so I did it and I got the thing back, and there was like one major thing that they had to say, which was Brent, which is my name, suffers from massive anxiety, from really debilitating anxiety. And what was kind of interesting was that they were right. I have no idea who they were, but they were correct. And it didn't occur to me because I had been so anxious for my whole life that I've never known a state other than anxiety. And I just assumed that's how life is. That's just how the experience of life is. But then when I read that, it occurred to me that it's possible to have an experience of life other than anxiety. And then once that happened, I became aware, holy smokes, there's so much anxiety in my body and in my heart and in my mind. And so then I went, the whole priority then began to be, how do I not be anxious? And so then I started to draw more from the ideas of the power of now in order to do that. And then like one of the salient elements of this, of course, is being at center. So a metaphor, now we can get into the definition. So like really, what are we talking about when we talk about being at center? So I have a few metaphors to offer you, 2 metaphors. Number 1, to be a monarch, so king or queen, emperor, in your throne. So the idea behind being at center is the same as, like, imagine a king sitting in his throne in the middle of his courtroom, which is in the center of his castle, which is in the center of his kingdom. And being a king, actually, one gets the sense, is very difficult work, even though you're sitting in your throne while you do it with a crown on your head. And what's difficult about it is that you have your subjects who are coming to you, either your people coming to you with threats of, say, war from neighboring countries, or from the peasants who are threatening an uprising, or people just in general coming to ask things of you. Because when you're a king, you sit there and people come and ask things of you. And so if the king were to get out of his throne and go visit the peasants where they are and see to what they need and serve them there, that's a massive misuse of the king's energy, because there's a million peasants everywhere and the king has to serve them all at once. And so in order to be of the greatest service and to render their best possible version of their job, they sit and stay seated in their throne and allow their subjects to come to them. And then they'll solve the problems one by one. Somebody comes, you listen, speak, do, decide, okay, next one, and on we go from there. And then that's how you can do the best possible job. This metaphor, I've gotten a ton of mileage out of it because it works in a multitude of different ways. And I would like for you now to, as we go deeper into this, I want you to picture yourself as a monarch. So either as a king or a queen sitting in your throne and allowing life to come to you and interfacing with life as it comes to you. And as the moment presents itself now, what are you going to do? And as the moment presents itself now, what are you going to do? And letting this be the primary way that you interact with what you're doing. Good. The subject of seeing yourself as a king or a queen is a really deep one, and I'm borrowing really heavily from Robert Moore's The Four Masculine Archetypes, which of course would appeal to a lot of men, but also appeals to the masculine element of women as well, because we all have masculine elements. And one of these archetypes is the king. So this, it really applies here. And I suggest if you want to really sink your teeth deeper into this metaphor, that you look up Robert Moore's work. There's a lot of his stuff on YouTube for free. And I will talk a little bit more about it later, the masculine archetypes, because it's fascinating. So that's the first metaphor. Slow down. So much to say. Number 2, riding a unicycle. Now, what's cool about this metaphor is, like, imagine if you're riding a unicycle. What would be the best way to go about it? Well, the best way to do it is to be on top. The idea is to be balanced on top of the wheel and not leaning excessively forward or backward. If you are leaning forward, then you run the risk of falling on your face. And then conversely, if you lean back, on the back of your head. And there's a deep patience that comes in this metaphor of not leaning forward such that you have to rebalance, nor backward, but just remaining on top in order to be on balance, in order to move the way that you're going in. So being at center involves a lot of trust, because there's these two elements of ourselves that are constantly bickering back and forth between themselves in this kind of discussion, where there's a part of us in the mind, the survival mechanism part of us, that does not trust the way life is going. So the part of you that doesn't trust, it doesn't trust you, it doesn't trust your habits, doesn't trust your personality, doesn't trust you to succeed, say, doesn't trust you to do a good job, doesn't trust that your life is unfolding as it should, and doesn't trust life itself, doesn't trust people. So you see what I mean? Like, there's a sense of not trusting. And so then in place of trust, there are mechanisms of control. We attempt to control by being controlling in some way. And there's 100 different ways that we do that. But what you'll also notice is that if I were to suggest to you that you can trust yourself, and you can trust your ability to interact with life, and that you can trust that life is unfolding beautifully and all is unfolding according to its own perfect divine timing, if you're honest, I believe you will notice that something in you rejoices, and something in you wants to believe that, but just doesn't feel safe to. So part of our discussion of returning to center and being at center is actually gifting yourself that safety. And I want to emphasize here, as we do, that you do not have to take anything on faith. You don't have to believe anything that I'm saying. I would never presume to override your sovereignty by saying you should just trust that everything's okay because I say so. What I'm saying instead is to try this out for yourself. Try out the following ideas, because your skepticism and your cynicism will, of course, want to fight back. Run a 5-day or 7-day or even a 1-day experiment with this, and then notice the effect it has on your life. If you were to move further into trust, does it cause things to improve, or does it cause things to get worse? And then act accordingly. So take your scientific, rational mindset and apply it to what I'm saying here, and with the full knowing that it would be unscientific to reject anything that I am saying here before trying it out first. Isn't that cool? Okay, good. So when we discuss time, so let us talk about the now for a second, and let us talk about like the core central teaching of the power of now. I'm going to take us through sort of a brief explanation, sort of meditation on the now. To step into the reality of the moment, to step into real present moment awareness, to be present. It's to remember very obvious facts, and I'll state them. The future is just a fantasy in your mind. And the past, similarly, is just a memory in your mind. And the extent to which either of these things are real is the extent to which they're in your mind. Outside of your mind, and stay with me, I know every argument about this. Just let me unfold with this. Let this unfold. I promise I'll speak to all this stuff. The now moment, aside from what your mind is saying, is just a vast space of nothing. It is just a vast, still, silent space in which everything happens. It's true that things still do happen in a sequence, in that days come and go. The sun goes up, sun goes down, the seasons come in, the seasons come out. And it is true, right now we're entering into summer pretty soon where I am, and it'll be winter and then it'll be summer again. And I'm not discounting any of that. I'm not saying that's not real. It is also true that if you plant a seed into the garden, and the seed will sprout and eventually blossom. All of that is true. It's not going to happen all at once. It happens over a sequence of days. And then finally, we still want to conduct ourselves in a way that's intelligent and mature. And so we prepare for the future, in the sense that we plant crops so that we can harvest them later, so that we will have food down the line. We invest money so that we'll have money down the line. So all of that stuff is perfectly fine and good. What I am saying is that everything that does take place, including the growing and blossoming of crops, the maturation of investments, the growth of a person, all of that happens as movement against the backdrop of the now. And the now itself is still. And the now itself was before everything, will be after everything, and even itself exists outside of any concept of time, because the now is primary. Forms come and go, but the now, despite my referring to it as a thing, it is not a thing. It is just emptiness. And so in order to access the now, there's a few different ways that we can do this. In The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle offers silence. So bring your attention to silence, and then that will allow your attention to drift to the now. Another one is spaciousness. Bring your attention to empty space. Same thing. But I have another one. Enoughness. You could give yourself the gift of enoughness, where you allow your life to be enough. Notice the egoic contraction. Allow your life to be enough. The ego has this vested interest in never allowing your life to be enough. The reason why your ego doesn't want your life to be enough is because it's afraid of settling for less than, the full potential. It's afraid that the growth will stop or progress will stop. It feels that through its dissatisfaction that it's somehow hastening itself along the path to the life of its dreams, where once we get to the life of our dreams, then the waiting is over and then we've arrived. And so thus it divides life into these two sections of the life that we're trying to get into and this bullshit here that we're trying to get through. We're either waiting and waiting and waiting, or we're trying and trying and trying and hustling and hustling and hustling. The truth is that there's no such division, And the truth is that there's nowhere to go. There's no experience to get to. There's no time to arrive at. There's no milestone that you could no milestone that you could pass that would have any true significance. We're always looking for this finish line that we pass where we're there. But notice the impossibility, even in the language, of being there. What is the definition of there? And really, I'm really asking you to reflect on this. I'm about to answer it, but take a minute. What does the word there mean? It means not here. It means elsewhere. It refers to a position that is not this one. So trying to get there, there's this painful impossibility, futility in that attempt. It's like a stretching that we're doing. It's like a schism in our mind. It's like trying to vacate reality and occupy our own imagination. We're trying to move into our imagination. There's nowhere to go but here. And I can make this real. I thought of a really cool way of like allowing you to really get this, like really bring this to life. So imagine like you and me, and let's say like, for the sake of argument, let's just say it's like you, me, and like 10 other people. So there's like 12 of us and we're on a spaceship out in space somewhere far away from anything anybody knows. And the spaceship is like really like nice and big. It's like a big mansion ship. So we have like lots of room and places to go and, you know, art supplies and stuff for entertainment. And you can kind of live like a really nice life. There's like lots of food and you know, things are pretty good on the spaceship. And let's say maybe also for the sake of argument, we're heading to some distant star, but we don't even know if we're going to get there before we die. So how would you live your life in a situation like this? What would you do? How would you go about this? You would do some stuff. You might create some stuff. You may write, make poems, sonnets, build, carve, sculpt, write stories, hang out with your friends, play games, develop stupid inside jokes, practice ping pong, shuffleboard. You know, you just do your thing. And, you know, yesterday you did this, the next day you did that, but especially without the reference of a sun to rise and fall and for seasons to come in and out, there's no marker of the passage of time, is there? There's just, you know, when you're tired, you go to sleep. When you wake up, if you're hungry, you eat. And really, truly, I want to really, I want us to really get the sense that there's nothing of true significance to do. You can make something very beautiful, and when you make it, it's great. You're so glad that you made it. But there's nowhere to go, and there's nothing to do. And there's nothing in particular to become. And there's nothing even in particular to realize, like say on the level of spiritual enlightenment. Like there's nothing, like even enlightenment is just something that happens. What would you do with yourself? Well, the ego would short circuit, wouldn't it? Because it's looking for significance. But then when it finally realizes that there's nothing of significance to get, then the human being wakes up out of that egoic sleep. And then there's an empowerment that happens, which is really, really strange to think about it from from the egoic perspective. But it's like, oh, I see. Now I just have time. I can just do whatever I want, and none of it matters. And there's no burden put on anything. There's no heaviness put on anything for anything to be other than what it is. And so then, of course, we can complete this metaphor by looking at Earth and seeing that that's what that is. That's what this is. But instead of 12 of us, there's 7 billion of us. And this idea of significance, because whereas before, maybe like the 12 of us in a spaceship, we played a lot of ping pong and we practiced, we're really competing very intensely to become the best of the 12 of us to be the best ping pong player. But that applies just to the Olympics. That's what the Olympics are. It's just there's more people and more money put into it, but it's the same thing. So, depending on where you're at as you hear this could be a little bit distressing perhaps, because it's like all of us start in our lives. We start with believing in the significance of everything. And then we awaken. Like, it's a realization that we all have. And my assumption about you is that you're past this point already. The guarantee is you're already beyond this, where you've seen the lack of significance of everything, of success, of money, of fame, of being at the top of the pyramid, way, way beyond that, right? But then you can also get stuck there. That's a sticking point. That's not the end of the journey, because then you're like, well, nothing matters. Then, what's the point of doing anything? And then you don't do anything. You don't make anything. You don't build anything. You don't create. And there's sort of a nihilism behind that. And that nihilism is life affirming. And in some ways it's worse. And we envy those who haven't realized what we realize. But that's just the second leg of the journey. The third leg is to go, oh, I see. There's no significance. Nothing is going to amount to anything. There's nowhere to go. So therefore, I'm just going to make something. I'm just going to express myself. I'm going to allow my authenticity to blossom. And it's wonderful. And we truly find flow. This is a real entry point into the flow state, because you'll know that you're in the flow state when the end result and the process, there's hardly even a distinction between the two anymore. The process is we're doing it for the process. And we're doing the process in order for the end. The end is the process is the end. There's no distinction anymore. There's no polarity anymore. That's how you arrive at the most profound flow state. And that's how you become the clearest channel to your genius and your authenticity and like the deep shit that you're here to give to the world. God, I did not plan on getting on that tangent. Where are we? Okay, no, we're doing good. So what throws us off center? Okay, so what throws us off center, therefore, is anything that can convince us of its absolute importance. Isn't it beautiful? Anything that convinces us it's of absolute importance will, by definition, throw us off center. So, if there's something in the world that can really threaten us, let's just say, for example, you have not yet transcended your fear of physical death. Perfectly understandable. So you're afraid of dying. You feel fear about your death. Okay, well now we have a problem, because death is there, right? It's there as a reality, not to make it worse than it is, but like death is there. And here I am. So these two things exist in one reality. So somehow I need to learn how to exist comfortably in the same reality as this thing. It doesn't have to be death. It could be spiders. It could be public speaking. It could be whatever. And then similarly, of the opposite nature, we're talking about things that we're trying to get away from. Then there's also things that we're trying to pursue. So if we, as children, we watch a commercial and up until that moment, we were totally fine. Everything was cool. And then suddenly we see a commercial with a toy that is like the coolest toy. Remember that feeling? And now suddenly I'm no longer okay. I'm no longer okay because I need this toy. Whenever I make content for you, whenever I create a product or a coaching service or something and I advertise it, so much do I respect your sovereignty that I'm afraid of having this effect. So that's why I always try to make it a little bit, kind of boring or something. I'll talk a little bit more about that later too, but I want you to know, because I think a lot of business owners and practitioners feel this way too. Anyway, so back to the idea here. See, you're watching this commercial, you see the toy, you want the toy. I'm no longer okay because I want this toy. So here's a journaling exercise for you if it's your desire to return to center. So now finally, we can get to the thing. How to return to center. Well, we do this by asking, what are these two things for you? Let's begin by assuming you have them. And let's also assume that they're connected. The thing that you're running from is the thing that terrifies you, and the thing that you're running towards represents a safety from that thing that you're afraid of. And so we're just in this constant pursuit, and the faster you move, the faster it pursues you, the faster your safety runs away from you. It's like you're in a dream. And you're running, but the landscape's running with you as you run. So nothing's happening. We're not going anywhere. What are you afraid of? And what about that thing makes you afraid of it? What about the experience of encountering that thing makes it that bad? What would happen if you were to encounter an experience that bad? Speaking personally, I have meditated where I've gotten as close as I possibly could get in touch with this thing. And what I discovered at the very center, and there is a center, I promise, there is a center somewhere. At my center, what I realized is there's a fear of encountering a sort of experience that is more than I can possibly endure, that I can possibly withstand. And then as soon as I saw that, I realized there's no such thing as that experience. There's no cul-de-sac. There's no experience that you can encounter from which there's no opportunity, from which there's no way through, forward, or out. In other words, there's always the next experience. There's always the next experience. No experience is that significant. And similarly with desire, in terms of what you have, what you get, there's nothing that you can get, that you can secure, that you can win, that you can bring into your experience that will be that good. It will not get you out of here, away from this. Just as we discussed the etymology of here versus there, there's also the etymology of this versus that. So this being that which is here, that which is now, that which is real. And the definition of the word that is that which is elsewhere, not here, not real. Think about how you're looking for an experience that's that experience. Think about in what way you're attempting to get there. That's addiction. That's hypnosis. That's being lost in the mental realms. And that's not being at center. Being at center comes with the knowing that whatever arises, whatever comes up, I'm there for it. I'm here for it. Part of being present, part of being at center is planting seeds so that we have a harvest tomorrow. It means eating celery instead of pizza. It means doing smart, intelligent things. It also means making plans. But recognizing that all of these things are done in the now. And all of these things should be done for their own sake, including survival. So I have a 4-point, I've touched on a lot of this, but just to summarize here, how to stay at center no matter what. 4 things. Number 1, commit to realizing the invulnerable, ineffable now. So just commit to it. Commit to being able to truly discern between the now and all of the stuff that's inside of the now. Discern between the play and the stage. And, you can still, like, everything else stays the same, but it's something that you know. Number 2, commit to realizing that nothing can come or go of true significance. We were discussing that. Number 3, commit to understanding. Ooh, here we go. Okay. Commit to understanding culture's vested interest in keeping you hypnotized into your lack of discernment between true and false significance. Terence McKenna had this very juicy, delicious thing that he would sometimes say, which is, culture is not your friend. And I loved hearing it because it just felt really exciting to hear it. Culture is not your friend. But I would offer this as an even more useful way of coming at it, which is, culture is your friend up to a certain point. Culture is essential for people up to a certain point. It teaches you, like, if you learn your culture, then you learn how to behave in your culture. You learn how to function as a part of society. That's absolutely essential. But your culture will not assist you and will not support you in transcending culture. And there are elements of culture that are pathological. There's a lot, like, in our collective psychology, By collective psychology, I mean the shit that we say to each other, to our friends, our family, our coworkers, our peers, to our children, our grandchildren, just what we say to each other, the collective hypnosis of our culture. There's a lot of pathology. No, you won't learn, for example, from our culture about how to love ourselves, about how to see ourselves as deeply deserving and worthy, among many other things. Don't get me started. So it's enough to just commit to realizing culture's vested interest in keeping you hypnotized, and to see how it happens. Your culture's vested interest in keeping you off center. Because if you're not on your center, then you can be manipulated for reasons that we were discussing. You can be manipulated. If I can scare you, I can manipulate you. If I can hypnotize you, I can manipulate you. If I can entice you, if I can imply, and this is so disrespectful, good God, it's so disrespectful if there's any advertising or marketing out there that says, I will get you there. There's no there. You'll get the result. You'll get your washboard abs, yes. You'll get your money, yes. You will get spiritual realization, yes. But none of that is that. You won't get there. You will not exit reality. Sometimes you watch news, TikToks or whatever. I'm on TikTok. I put content on TikTok, but I consume it as well. And people will say, if you're Canadian, you should be afraid because XYZ. No, don't do that. Do not tell people how to feel, and do not allow yourself to be told how to feel, how to interpret news, how to interpret information. Allow the stimulus to come. Choose the response. Number 4, commit to finding flow with life. Recognizing the flow of life, recognizing it from without in the form of signs and omens, but also recognizing it from inside. I want to do this. My desire is leading me this way. My heart is leading me this way. My mind says maybe I should do this to be safe, but my heart desires this. And just allow your heart to speak and follow your heart. This is flow from within. All right. Abuse of this principle. So, as an extra gift to really bring this home, I'm going to share with you how to avoid the abuse of the principle of staying at center. Number one, do not confuse endurance with surrender. What I mean by this is simply, if you're in a situation where there's a stone in your shoe and you're going for a walk, don't find peace with the stone in your shoe, right? Can you see how that's sort of an idiotic interpretation of this? Stop and get the stone out of your shoe. At the same time, don't endure poor or abusive behavior from other people. Don't allow people to be mean to you. Don't just be cool with it. Don't just allow yourself to be the butt end of disrespect. Don't spend time with people that dishonor you. Either set boundaries or leave, or both. Do not use this principle of remaining at center to invalidate your experience or to invalidate your story. So if you're feeling, sad or upset or guilty or triggered or emotional or depressed or whatever, don't disrespect yourself by just saying, oh, like these are just formations in the now alone endures, and all things come and go, including my sadness and whatever. Unexpressed emotion or unhealing hurt and that which requires your attention will not go away until it gets your attention. And so being at center with this thing here will be a taxation on your resources. If there's truly nothing that can be done, then surrender and acceptance become a real possibility. And then finally, to really bring this home, my suggestion to you is to really work with this journaling practice of what is the ultimate threat and what's the ultimate desire. I keep forgetting to ask for you to hit the like button. Please hit the like button. Consider subscribing. Consider joining the Sovereign Creators Collective. And I'll have some of my different links below as well. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Just being at center. It's safe to be at center. You can live your life from your center. And it's even better than you can imagine if you're not already doing this. So give it a shot and let us know how it goes. Leave a comment letting me know how you enjoyed this. I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.